Coyote Ridge Open Space Preserve is a nearly 2,000-acre property managed by Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. It is located in the Diablo Range foothills east of Highway 101 in southern Santa Clara County and is known for its spectacular wildflower displays. The land is home to vulnerable, threatened, and endangered species that thrive in its rare serpentine grassland, such as the bay checkerspot butterfly and the Metcalf Canyon jewelflower, as well as the California red-legged frog, the California tiger salamander, and the western burrowing owls, and tule elk. There are two access points for Coyote Ridge Preserve, one near Highway 101 and one near Metcalf Motorcycle County Park. We arrive at the parking area for Metcalf Motorcycle County Park. We hear and see more than 30 swallows flying through the air. This is a colony of cliff swallows. They are the most colonial swallow in the world, regularly forming colonies of 200 to 1,000 nests. They preen, feed, drink, and bathe in groups, and they continue sticking together in large flocks during migration and on their wintering grounds. Their mud nests are under the roof awning of a storage facility. One adult bird is sitting on a mud nest while the chicks are sticking their little heads out of the nest entrance, singing and calling for food. Others are flying in and out of the nests to feed their chicks. These compact swallows have rounded, broad-based wings, a small head, and a medium-length squared tail. In poor light, cliff swallows look brownish, with dark throats and white underparts. In good light, you can see their metallic, dark blue backs and pale pumpkin-colored rumps. They have rich, brick-red faces and a bright, buff-white forehead patch that looks like a headlamp. Formerly restricted to canyons, foothills, and river valleys with natural cliff faces and overhangs, cliff swallows have spread into a wide variety of habitats by nesting on buildings, bridges, and other human-made structures. They gather mud in their bills from nearby stream banks, lakesides, or puddles. The finished nest is gourd-shaped and measures about 8 inches long, 6 inches wide, and 4.5 inches high. The entrance, which is sometimes elongated into a tube, is about 2 inches wide and is lined with dried grass. Cliff swallows are aerial insectivores, meaning that they feed primarily on insects they catch while in flight. This gives true meaning to the phrase fast food. They are not picky eaters. Their diet consists of many types of flying insects, especially swarming species. We start walking on a trail that is wide enough for a car and see views of the green grass-covered hills and hear the sounds of western meadowlarks. Coyote Ridge Open Space Preserve is one piece of land that is rich in serpentine rock, and over time the rock has eroded into serpentine soil. This rare soil is most abundant in California, and even here it represents only 1% of the state's land area. Most plants cannot grow in serpentine soil because it is low in calcium, and plant nutrients like nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, and high in magnesium, cobalt, nickel, iron, chromium, and other heavy metals. However, specific, diverse, and unusual flora have become adapted to and thrive in this soil. In California, a majority of them are rare or endangered. One example is the federally endangered Metcalf Canyon jewel flower that is endemic to Santa Clara Valley. Its pale green, waxy stem reaches up to 3 feet tall with bristly hairs at the base and pale green waxy leaves. This plant is from the mustard family and blooms from April to July with 3 fused greenish-white sepals and 4 white petals with light purple veins. As we walk a little further, we spot a colorful bird out in the dry grass that is eating insects on the ground. This bird is an adult male western bluebird with a brilliant blue head and throat, wings and upper body, a complementary rust-colored breast, and white belly. A female western bluebird lands beside him. In the tall green grasses, we spot a pink wildflower called jeweled onion. It is a Northern California species of wild onion that likes to live on serpentine soil. A tightly bunched cluster of flowers sits atop its long stem. Its attractive bright pink shiny flowers are bell-shaped. One insect that is dependent on serpentine soils is the bay checkerspot butterfly. We spot one resting on an oak leaf. Its larvae and adult butterflies feed on plants that grow only on serpentine soil. The primary larval host plant is endangered dwarf plantain, a small herb with white clustered flowers on the end of a short light green stalk. If the plantain dries up, the larvae transfer to purple owl's clover, whose long, thin, pink petals form a dense spike at the top of each stem. Its white and yellow anthers with black spots poke out of the pink spike of flowers and appear like eyes staring at you. Adult bay checkerspots emerge in early spring and feed on purple owl's clover nectar. They mate and lay eggs. Females lay up to 5 egg masses of up to 250 eggs each, which they deposit near the base of the plant. Of note, the butterflies live an average of only 10 days. The bay checkerspot is a medium-sized butterfly with a wingspan of about 2 inches. The top surfaces of its wings have black bands along all the veins that sharply contrast with its bright red, yellow, and white spots. 300 years ago, the endemic bay checkerspots were widespread in the Bay Area, from Twin Peaks in San Francisco and Mount Diablo in Contra Costa County, south to Hollister. The bay checkerspot butterfly was listed as a federally threatened species in 1987. The California Endangered Species Act does not allow listing of insects, so the bay checkerspot has no protection under state legislation. Threats to the butterfly include loss of habitat due to suburban sprawl and degradation by invasive species and inappropriate management, such as grazing and fire. Invasive species include European grasses, first introduced by settlers, that quickly outcompeted the butterfly's host plants, dwarf plantain, and purple owl's clover. Almost 24,000 acres of serpentine soils in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, including Coyote Ridge Preserve, were designated as critical habitat for the butterflies in April 2001. Today, the only known populations live in Santa Clara County. Restoration work that keeps invasive grasses from the preserves is critical to the butterfly's survival. Research on the Jasper Ridge Bay checker spot population found rainfall is the biggest factor in determining checker spot numbers in this area. Caterpillars hatch from eggs in April, but will starve if they can't get big enough before the summer drought comes, when their seasonal food plants perish. The longer those plants stay alive, the more time the caterpillars have to get fat enough to reach their fourth instar. In the distance, we see a crowd of oak trees where two lush green hills meet. We walk toward the trees and start to hear the hum of cicadas. The loud sound coming from the trees is from male cicadas. Starting in spring of 2001, Brood X, who have spent 17 years underground, started to emerge in the Midwestern and Eastern United States. The nymphs crawl up stems, tree trunks, or any other vertical surface, then shed their exoskeletons. Literally billions of these insects have come out of hibernation to look for a mate and reproduce. They only have at most 6 weeks to accomplish this goal. Here in California, if you are out walking on the trails this spring, you may have heard many loud male cicadas trying to attract a mate using the sound they produce with their wings. Cicadas have been on this earth for millions of years and have been featured in mythology, art, and music throughout history. They have rust and black-colored bodies, transparent wings with black veins, and beady red eyes. Lucky for us, we spot a California sister butterfly sitting on the tip of a coast live oak leaf. It has orange on the corner and metallic blue on the edge of its forewings. The rest of the butterfly is brown. They are commonly seen flying among the branches of coast live oak trees and sitting on their leaves, like we find here, because it is the food source for their larval stage. Interestingly, this butterfly's eggs are green and laid singly on the tips of the upper surfaces of oak tree leaves. Its diet consists of both coast live and canyon oak, which makes it unpalatable to predators. We hear the distinct loud calls of acorn woodpeckers and see a bird with a bright red cap, black mask across its eyes and around its beak, but bright white on its forehead and cheeks, perched in the thick branch of one of the oak trees. These birds are aerial insectivores and feed on grasshoppers, beetles, ants, and flycatchers. During the winter, when fewer flying insects can be found, acorns become a very important food source for them. As young adults, acorn woodpeckers become babysitters rather than breeders. Older children help raise their younger siblings. To move from being a helper to a breeder role, the bird has to grab a granary and breeding territory. There are 2 ways to do this: by inheritance or by winning the power struggle that ensues when a breeding parent dies. Research studies using radio-tagged birds show that when a position opens up, coalitions of birds from 2 to 3 kilometers away swoop in to fight for the open position, the granary, and the breeding rights. Of the 40 or so birds that may come in, about a third of the birds are warriors, and the rest are spectators. Warriors spend a lot of time fighting for days on end and spectators spend their time gathering social information about the birds that they may have to fight in the future. We walk back up to the trail, and just in front of us we find a black-tailed jackrabbit. As soon as she sees me, she runs away with a gait similar to a dog. The distinguishing feature of this rabbit is its black tips on its long ears. It has very long front and rear legs and weighs an average of 6 pounds. It has peppery brown fur and a black stripe that runs down its back. The black-tailed jackrabbit is not really a rabbit. It is a hare because its young are born with fur and with their eyes open. To evade predators, they can run up to 30 miles an hour, jump up to 20 feet in distance, and move in a zigzag pattern. They can also swim by dog paddling with all 4 of its feet. On the left side of the trail, we spot some popcorn flowers. They originate from the forget-me-not family and are a slender, hairy plant that grows up to 20 inches tall. They got their name from tiny, white, 5-petaled flowers that are clustered at the top of a coiled stem. The flowers open from the bottom to the top of the stem, causing the stem to uncoil, just like fiddlenecks. Popcorn flowers are a host plant for the Acmon blue butterfly, and we see a male butterfly landing on a flower to drink its nectar, then flying to the next flower. These butterflies are tiny with a wingspan of at most 1 inch wide. Males are more colorful than females, and this one has blue upper wings with orange edges with black spots on its hind wings. Its underside is silver with black spots and bright orange edges. Like many other insects, the adult lives 4 to 10 days. One of the endangered species that lives on Coyote Ridge Preserve is the western burrowing owl, a small brown bird mottled with sandy-colored spots on its wings and round head, and has a white throat and eyebrows, and bright yellow eyes and bill. Burrowing owls live in open habitats like this one. While most owl species are nocturnal, burrowing owls are active during the day and spend most of their time on the ground or on low perches such as fence posts. They hunt close to the ground, catching a variety of dietary delights, including insects such as grasshoppers, crickets, moths, and beetles, and small mammals such as mice, voles, and shrews. They won't turn away frogs, toads, snakes, and lizards and other birds. Their name comes from the fact that they live underground in burrows that they either make themselves or acquire from prairie dogs and ground squirrels. When predators get too close or they are otherwise alarmed, they jerk their bodies quickly up and down and dive into their burrow. In 2009, fewer than 40 breeding pairs lived in Santa Clara Valley. By 2010, the number of these owls declined to the brink of extinction. While the population here in Santa Clara Valley is very small, the Imperial Valley in California, which is right on the border of Mexico, is home to about 70% of California state's breeding burrowing owls, or 4,000 breeding pairs. In the distance, we hear what sounds like the chirp from a fire alarm when its battery is dead. We spot a western meadowlark on the post of a fence that is responsible for making this sound. This is a common place for males to sing in the springtime to attract mates. Breeding adults have bright yellow throats and underparts, with a black V crossing its bright yellow breast. Its head and upper body have dark and light brown stripes. It has a flat head and short tail. There are a handful of active male meadowlarks in this area. We find another one perched on a rock, running down the rock and up another one. During the spring, males spend up to a month establishing and defending their breeding territory. Once they mate, they are responsible for bringing food to the nest and chasing intruders such as coyotes. Out on the hillside, we see one of the free-roaming herds of tule elk grazing and resting in the tall grasses. They are a protected species that are endemic to California, meaning they are only found here. They were subject to uncontrolled hunting and displaced by cattle in the mid-1800s, which reduced their population to a herd of only 30 elk by the 1870s. Conservation efforts allowed them to grow to a population of more than 5,000 elk by the year 2020. Tule elk are majestic animals with a reddish tone around their neck area and a white rump area. Males weigh up to 700 pounds and have longer hair around their neck. During the spring, they regrow their antlers. Mature males have up to 7 points on each antler. While elks are large mammals and the males have impressive antlers to fight for access to females, they are herbivores who graze on bunch grasses, oaks, and shrubs. During rut or mating season, the bull stays with the females, but the rest of the year the females stay apart from the males. We head back and take in the views of the valley from the tops of the hills. As you probably know, Santa Clara Valley was famous in the 1900s for its fruit orchards, prunes, pears, apricots, and cherries that fed our country. Hence its fabled name, Valley of the Heart's Delight. We can see crops that comprise some of the last remaining farmland of Santa Clara Valley and is home to large areas of orchards and farms. Sitting on a leaf of a coffeeberry shrub, there is a Lorquin's admiral butterfly. The butterfly is named after Pierre Lorquin, a French naturalist who came to California during the gold rush. This butterfly has brown-black wings with one row of elongated white spots that look like a band across the middle of its wings. The tips of its forewings are bright orange. Remember I described the California sister butterfly coloring and that it was unpalatable to predators because it eats oak leaves. The Lorquin's admiral butterfly tries to mimic the coloring of the unpalatable California sister butterfly that lives in the same habitats so it can avoid predators. Their favorite meal is the California buckeye, yerba santa, privet, and dung. Interestingly, for such a small insect, male butterflies are extremely territorial and will attack any intruders into their habitat, including large birds. They lay their eggs on the upper side of host plant leaves, and caterpillars overwinter in rolled leaves as shelter. They migrate from as far north as Vancouver, Canada, to as far south as Baja California, from April to October. On the left side of the trail, we find white wildflowers, whose white blooms with purple tips are tiered in whorls near the top of a 2-foot stalk. This flowering plant is native to California and is called white calencia, a word that means spider. One of its common names is Chinese houses because the flower clusters into a form that looks like a pagoda. A velvety fuzz often covers the entire plant, including the flowers. It is the host plant for variable and Edith's checker spot butterflies, which are relatives of the bay checker spot. We hear another insect sound and spot a tan and brown mottled insect jumping on the reddish-brown dirt. This 1.5-inch pallid-winged grasshopper has reddish-brown antennas, large tan eyes, thin striped forelegs, and strong muscular hind legs. The front wings are the same color as the body, and they are leathery in texture. It is challenging to see because it blends in perfectly with the ground colors. It likes to rest on the bare ground because it can bask in the sun. Nymphs and adults eat grasses and flowering plants. There have been outbreaks of these grasshoppers with densities as high as 50 adults per square yard, which have destroyed crops. For example, in California, these grasshoppers have invaded and damaged fields of safflower and grapes, as well as cotton, sugar beets, barley, and corn. They are known to be strong flyers, with some pilots reporting swarms at altitudes of 3,000 to 5,000 feet. Another insect we find on the ground is easy to spot because it is bright red. This is called a velvet ant, which is appropriate because it looks soft and furry, but it is a misnomer because it's a wasp. It does look like an ant running along the dirt in one direction, and then another, and then back again, looking for bees and wasps to eat. It has a bright red head with two protruding black antennae, a bright red thorax and abdomen, separated by black constrictions between them. We see no wings, which means it is a female. It's wise to leave velvet ants alone because females have a long, needle-like stinger concealed at the tip of the abdomen and can give you a very painful sting if you pick them up. Velvet ants can produce a squeaking, warning sound when disturbed. A horned lark sits on a serpentine rock and sings us a farewell song. They are rusty brown, long-bodied songbirds that have short, thin bills, short necks, round heads, and white underparts. The way to identify them is by their two small horns of black feathers sticking up towards the back of their head, as well as their single black stripe across their chest and black face mask. They are social birds and can be found in large flocks in the winter and even hang out with other bird species. They like bare ground where they can easily find seeds and insects to eat. The female horned lark builds her nest on bare ground, either choosing an existing hole in the ground or she digs a hole using her bill to loosen the soil and flip it aside and may kick dirt out with her feet. Her nest is a basket made of grass, roots, and other plant materials woven together and lined with soft materials such as down, fur, feathers, and man-made materials like lint and string. Then it's ready for her to lay up to 5 dark pearl gray eggs that are spotted with cinnamon color. Ground nests are more vulnerable to predators such as meadow voles, shrews, deer mice, weasels, skunks and raccoons, and even other birds. Females stealthily leave the nest, trying to hide the nest location, and won't return to the nest if potential predators lurk nearby. She may try to distract predators by fluttering up and landing about a foot from the nest in a crouched position with her wings spread, and hope the predators follow her away from the nest. The horned lark population has experienced a cumulative decline of 71% according to the North American Breeding Bird Survey, but there are still an estimated 120 million birds in the world. Most of them spend at least part of the season in the United States. As we head back to our car, we feel grateful to have seen a diversity of plants, birds, insects, mammals, and views of the heart of Santa Clara Valley.